Good morning, everyone. I now call this eighth day, fourth regular session to order. Please all rise for a moment of silence. Thank you again, members, and good morning to all, to the viewing public. Welcome to the House of Representatives. Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Speaker,
Present.
Representative Franklin Babalta,
Present.
Representative Sheila Babalta,
Present.
Representative Benavente,
Aye.
Representative Blanco,
Present.
Representative Borja, Representative Komatsu,
Present.
Representative Costro,
Stiga.
Representative De Leon Guerrero,
Kaya.
Representative Flores,
Present.
Representative Guerrero,
Stiga.
Representative Victabus,
Hilo.
Representative Lizama,
Present.
Representative Manglotnya,
Present.
Representative Maritita, Representative Peter,
Gaya.
Representative Cristina Sablan,
Present.
Representative John Paul Sablan,
Stiga.
Representative Villagomez,
Present.
Representative Yumo.
Present.
Mr. Speaker, all 20 members are present.
Thank you, Clerk. With all 20 members present, constitutes a quorum to proceed with today's session. But before we move to the next order of business, I would like to recognize the floor leader for the proper motions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At this time, I make a motion that we suspend Rule 3, Section 6, so that the rules amends its agenda to include unnumbered bills, resolutions, and communications not filed with the clerk's office 72 hours in advance when a notice for a session was given. So move.
A motion has been presented by our floor leader to suspend pertinent rules and has been seconded. Discussion on that motion. Ready? Clerk, please call the roll.
Representative Franklin Babalta,
Yes.
Representative Sheila Babalta,
Yes.
Representative Benavente,
Good.
Representative Blanco,
Yes.
Representative Borja, Representative Komatsu,
Yes.
Representative Costro, Representative De Leon Guerrero,
Good.
Representative Flores,
Yes.
Representative Guerrero,
Good.
Representative Victabus,
I was.
Representative Lizama,
Yes.
Representative Manglotnya,
Yes.
Representative Maritita, Representative Peter,
Ungan.
Representative Cristina Sablan,
Yes.
Representative John Paul Sablan,
Ungan.
Representative Villagomez,
Yes.
Representative Yumo.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker,
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, all 20 members voted yes.
Thank you, Clerk. With all 20 members voting yes, pertinent rules are hereby suspended. Next, under order of business, public comments. The podium's open for any member of the public to make a comment. You got 5 minutes. Please state your name. And if you represent yourself, please state that or represent a specific organization, company, or agency. You got 5 minutes. Floor leader's got control over that.
Buenos días, no, Mr. Speaker, Zan Loki y palo na membro nisti na legislatura, no. Feliz Pascua and Año Nuevo para todos, Sanzo. Mr. Speaker, for the record, my name is Rafael Sablan de Mapan. I am here briefly just to express our support on the proposed measure. I am here on behalf of the CCC Commission and on behalf of the commissioners. As we all know, no, the proposed measure has been thoroughly reviewed, as indicated on the transmittal from both the House and the Senate. As we speak, no, the Commission continues to review the proposed measure, and overall we are happy with the changes. So with that, Mr. Speaker and members, no, again, on behalf of the Commission, no, we are ready to, and hopefully the proposed measure no, gets approved by this body. Estes and Talu, buenos días.
Thank you, former Speaker Demapan. And if you have a written statement, please provide it to the Sergeant at Arms. If not, that's okay. Thank you for your comments. Podium's still open for any member. other member from the audience that would like to make a public comment? I'll move down the order of business under adoption of journals. Recognize the clerk, please.
Mr. Speaker, under item 3, adoption of journals, we have 2 items. The first is the 5th day, second regular session journal, October 15, 2019, and 8th day, second regular session journal, December 10, 2019.
Thank you, clerk. Recognize the floor leader for the proper motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At this time, I move for the adoptions of both journals. The 5th day, second regular session journal, October 15, 2019, and the 8th day, second regular session journal, December 10, 2019. So move.
Motion has been presented by our floor leader for the adoption of 2 specific journals, and that's been seconded. Discussion on that motion. Ready? All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, please say nay. Motion carries. Both journals are hereby adopted. Under the order of business on the introduction of bills, I recognize Representative Franklin Babalta, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to formally introduce House Bill number 21-129 to amend 1 CMC subsection 6003, 6201, 6202, 6203, 6204, 6205, and 6211 to shorten the closing of the registration and voting residency duration to 30 days, amend the definitions of domicile and residency so that it is clear that only bona fide CNMI residents are eligible to vote absentee, and to align the days allowed to change election precincts so that it is consistent with the closing of the voter registration and the residency duration requirements. This is pre-filed by myself, co-sponsored by other representatives, and this is still open for other representatives to co-sponsor.
Thank you, Representative Franklin Babalta. And as I previously discussed, I know the council that worked with you on this specific legislation is currently on Rhoda taking care of Senate business down there. And with our council, John Cole, that raised a few concerns. We'll be sending this specific legislation to JGO, and I respectfully ask the committee on JGO's chair and the committee members to work on this legislation with the Commonwealth Election Commission. This is one bill that we've had discussed with them back in September to address the concerns that they have brought up over the last couple elections, so we can move on forward. So with that, House Bill number 21-129 will be referred to the Committee on JGO. And next, I would like to recognize Representative Janet Maritita.
Citrus Master, Mr. Speaker, introducing House Bill number 21-30. I'm in 130 to repeal and reenact 4 CMC subsection 53036G of the Talamore Sensible CNMI Cannabis Act of 2018. Pre-filed by myself and Congressman Lipan, and open to any other members who wish to sign off on this legislation. And with that said, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to place it on today's calendar for action.
Thank you, Representative Maritita. And without any objection, I recognize the floor leader for the proper motion to place the legislation on calendar for action.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At this time, I move that we suspend Rule 9, Section 8, referrals of bills and resolutions, so that we can place House Bill number 21-30 on today's bill calendar. So move.
Motion has been placed by our floor leader to suspend specific pertinent rules, and has been seconded. Discussion on that motion. Ready? All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, please say nay. Motion carries. House Bill number 21-130 is hereby placed on calendar for action today. We have none under local bills. We have none under legislative initiatives. Introduction of resolutions. I recognize Representative Tina Sablan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm introducing House Resolution 2139 in strong support of H.R. 8406, the updated version of the HEROES Act. This has been introduced by myself and others, and if there are no objections, I'd like to invite sponsorship in Committee of the Whole.
Thank you, Representative Tina Sablan. Thank you for allowing all the members to be a part of the resolution. And with no objection from the members, I would like to place House Resolution number 21-39 on calendar for action today. No objection? Thank you, members. Under commemorative resolution, I recognize Representative Joel Camacho, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Here to formally introduce House Commemorative Resolution 21-13 to honor and memorialize the life of the late Rose Marie Sonis Pangilinan Camacho on her tremendous contributions to the students of the CNMI and for her outstanding accomplishment in the improvement and enhancement of the CNMI Scholarship Office in its service to our people. Briefed out by myself and several others and open for co-sponsorship. Thank you.
Rep Camacho, if I'm not mistaken, we had presented this resolution, and is it okay that we go to Committee of the Whole?
Oh, yes, yes, please. No objection.
With no objection, Commemorative Resolution 21-13 will be placed on calendar for action today. And I would like to recognize Representative Castro, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Introducing House Commemorative Resolution 21-14, recognizing the contributions of Tri-Marianas to the local economy and congratulating them on their 5th anniversary of operations. Introduced by myself, along with a few other co-sponsors as well, open for further co-sponsorship as well. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Without any objection, Rep Castro, is it okay that we place it in Committee of the Whole?
No objection.
No objection from the members? No objection. None. Now we'll be placing House Commemorative Resolution 21-14 on calendar, but not for action today. No objection from the members? Thank you, members. And that takes care of our resolution calendar. Messages from the Governor. Clerk, please.
Mr. Speaker, under item 6, messages from the Governor, we have Governor's Communication 21-161 through 175. 175 has been amended and included on today's agenda.
Thank you. Thank you, Clerk. Discussion on Governor's Communications. Representative Lipon, please.
Si Diyos Masi, no, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, no, bago gaggan mga ganjo na babay-tay-tay kasi ita sa mujong abogado, Attorney General na man ma-furlough no under civil service na no Assistant Attorney General nan tilasi juling nga size on webi no gini ki Governor's Communication siga manoksa sti Governor Communication 21-173 aksa ti comprerendi ang gintada sa lapi hafa na siga manoksa bang furlough no manoksa ti comprerendi no na sistema, Mr. Speaker. Bibi na kanan chuli math talo takti sa ti comprerendi afa na posiga manaksa da wasya man ma-furlough. Katunga na patis ti na po informada magi gobyerno no bibi ta na paras ti na klase sistema. Unaswa los cuantos na tauto no unaksa los cuantos. Mr. Speaker.
Si Diyos Masi, Representative Lipon. Before I recognize Rep Castro, I'd like to, for the members, notification that Communication 21-170 and 21-175, which was just included in today's agenda, will be referred to JGO. I believe JGO has already set a schedule for a hearing for the appointee of Ms. Kina B. Peter on Tuesday at 10 a.m. here in the House chamber. So those communications will be referred to the committee, and I respectfully ask the chair and his committee members to please review those documents and open to any other member. to join in that public hearing. With that being said, further discussion under Governor's communication, Representative Castro.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I just kind of want to touch in regards to, I guess, discuss Governor's Communication 21-172 a little bit. I know that this is the latest executive order that came out, which rescinds the price freeze that was in place since early March, you know, in response to the emergency that we're still experiencing right now. Now, I know that in one of the line items in this executive order, there is something that specifies that there's no longer a shortage of goods caused by the pandemic, and the businesses have adapted to new supply chains to bring products to the CNMI. So the threat of the ready with availability of these products, that's what compelled the administration to rescind the price freeze. Of course, it's within their prerogative. So I hope that with the rescinding of this price freeze, that we can, you know, we can continue to try to live within our means within the parameters of this pandemic. The only thing I'm concerned about is just I hope that with rescinding this price freeze, that the businesses who supply these products to our constituents will try to live within those means as well. You know, we do have our constituents still dealing with either waiting on the payments, waiting on their payments to come in. Some are furloughed, and they're trying their best to make ends meet throughout this the days of this pandemic. So I'm hoping that with this action and hopefully further forward, we can try to have those businesses try to keep our constituents in mind when it comes time to providing them the goods and services that they depend on. So that's kind of what I wanted to put out in regards to this, Mr. Speaker, and I hope that you know, we can see some better days after this. So with that, I yield.
Thank you, Representative Castro. Representative Tina Sablan, and then Vice Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is on Governor's Communication 21-171, renewing the authority of the Secretary of Finance to reprogram or transfer funds from accounts of any department, agency, office, board, commission, corporation, instrumentality, or other entity in order to meet the threat of COVID-19. Mr. Speaker, I was alarmed, I think many of us were, to say the least, by the report of the fiscal analyst that as of August 31st, so not even for the entire fiscal year, this government was on track to overspend by, or had already overspent beyond allotments by $177 million. And that a portion of that could be attributed to disaster expenditures, but not all of that, and not even most of that. And we have not received any reports, to my knowledge, unless the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee could correct me, or the chairman, for that matter, of the Special Committee on Federal Disaster-Related Expenditures. I have not seen any reports. I'm a member of both committees. I think that the overspending of this government is cause for major concern for all of us, and the continuing unlimited reprogramming power that the governor and the Secretary of Finance continue to exercise on all agencies and departments under the guise of meeting the threat of COVID-19, I think really needs to be questioned and scrutinized, and we need to get some reports about the fiscal condition of this government. Exactly where are we at? Even the data that we have from our fiscal analyst is not complete. It's only as of the end of August, so we began this fiscal year in a very deep hole. And the unlimited reprogramming power for COVID-19 purposes continues today, and we still have not received any reports. And so I'd like to ask Mr. Speaker, the chairman of the committees of jurisdiction, if we could please formally request reporting and transparency from the Secretary of Finance and really from this administration about the overspending and also the necessity of this executive order. Thank you.
Thank you, Rep. Tina Sablan. Vice Speaker, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I wanted to echo Rep. Lipon's concern regarding the salary increases under the Attorney General's office. And I absolutely concur with him in regards to the nine employees furloughed under that office. But I wanted to also touch up on House Governor's Communication 2166 and 21167, which the governor allows salary increases for 2 personnel under the governor's office. So in essence, that is also a concern for me, if not for Rep. Lipon. I yield for now, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Speaker. Any further under Governor's Communications? None? All right. Senate Communications. Recognize the floor leader for the proper motion, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At this time, I make a motion that we accept all Senate communication so that it becomes the property of the House. So move.
A motion to accept all Senate communication has been placed by our floor leader. Has been seconded. Discussion. Rep. Lipon, please.
Mr. Speaker, I thought that Senate Communication 21-120 was to be placed.
We have to accept accept all the communications first, sir.
Thank you.
Further discussion. Ready? All those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, please say nay. Motion carries. Okay, members, Senate Communication 21-78 will be placed on calendar for action. 21-98 will be referred to Ways and Means. 21-120 will be placed on calendar. 21-121 will be referred to Education. 21-122 will be referred to JGO. 21-123 will be referred to JGO. 21-124 will be referred to JGO, and that takes care of the Senate communications. Please reflect that on your agenda. Their House communications. Clerk, please.
Mr. Speaker, under item 8, House Communications, we have House Communication 21-152 through 21-155.
Thank you, Clerk. Any discussion under House communication? Ready? Communications from the judicial branch, we have none. Departments and agencies. Clerk, please.
Mr. Speaker, under item 10, communications from department and agencies, we have Department Agency Communication 21-65 all the way to 21-75. 74 and 75 has been included on our agenda today.
Thank you, Clerk. Discussion under communication from departments and agencies. Rep. Janet Martita, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just to comment on communications from departments and agency regarding those departments that are submitting the citizen-centric report. I think this is a report that will give the legislature the avenue to look into, in terms of fiscal responsibility, and also at least to use this report for future budget requests and so forth. I do believe that this public law really is a great way of informing our citizens, especially our lay citizens, because it's only a 4-page, and I think I encourage this body to make use of this report in order for us to analyze, the challenges, successes of each department, particularly our central government. So with that said, I'd like to thank these agencies for conforming to such a public law, and I'm very pleased as I have the time to really review and look into their reports. It's really, I see the success of each departments. So with that said, I'd like to thank those agencies really for conforming to such public law. Thank you.
Thank you, Rep. Martita, and thank you. I know you're the primary author of the legislation that became law to require the centric reports. And unfortunately, this is the first time we're seeing all of these reports coming in, and it'll be a very good tool for the future members of both houses to address the budget needs of various agencies and departments. So again, thank you for that. Under Department Agency Communication 21-73, that specific communication will be referred to the Committee on Natural Resources. This is regarding the Hyatt Regency proposal for the land lease. Thank you again, members. Further discussion under departments and agencies? Ready? Miscellaneous communications. Clerk, please.
Mr. Speaker, under item 11, miscellaneous communications, we have miscellaneous communications 21-101 through 21-105.
Thank you, Clerk. Discussion under miscellaneous communication. Rep. Martita, please.
Thank you again, Speaker. Miscellaneous Communication 21-102 from the Micronesian Legal Service Corporation. Again, although I'm not going to be a part of this body in the future, I hope, and I just like to comment and encourage all of you who are returning to please always bear and consider the request of Micronesian Legal Services, as it really is catered to assist our low-income people, and especially women. And again, I encourage all of you to please continue to assist Micronesian Legal Services. Thank you.
Thank you, Rep. Martita. Any further discussion under miscellaneous communications? Well, you guys are pretty quiet. It's been a while, huh? Thank you, members. Down to number 12 under order of business, reports of standing committee. I recognize the floor leader for the proper motions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Under item 12, reports of standing committee, we have several. And first is standing committee report number 21-62, reporting on House Bill number 21-25, entitled to authorize the Department of Public Lands to issue licenses and use permits and charge fees for the use of public lands located within 150 feet of the high water mark. Your Committee on Natural Resources recommends that the House pass House Bill number 21-25 in its current form. I move for its adoption.
Thank you, floor leader. A motion has been placed by our floor leader for the adoption of standing committee report number 21-62 and has been seconded. Discussion on that motion. Rep. Benavente, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to input some of the concerns. This proposal is a good proposal also, but just like to advise the member that there's an existing provisions that is mandating the high water marks right now, and it is CRM is imposing fees too and fines with regards to any type of constructions or any kind of usage of beyond the high water marks from the beach side. So just to make the members aware of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Rep. Benavente. Any further discussion under the adoption? Rep. Tina Saban.
Yeah, just to follow up on Representative Benavente's remarks, So are you in support of the adoption of this committee report, or are you suggesting that we reach out to the other agencies that have jurisdiction?
My
If the
concern
committee
is-
hasn't already met
My
with them?
concern is we're double charging whatever the public is or whoever that's responsible to do constructions or any kind of activities with regards to along the beach area. So, because I had encountered that personally, and as a representative, I encountered that by doing some projects outside and beyond the high water marks, and being charged with fees and whatnot. So, by allowing also the DPL to impose fees, like we are double charging the people. So, I'm just sharing this among all the members. If that's up to the members, you know. But personally, I'm not fully in support of this because I know how much already the Coastal Resources Management or the BECQ is charging the people that's involved in doing all these kind of activities. Thank
Right.
you.
And
Thank
if I
you.
may still have
You
the
still have
floor,
the floor.
Mr. Speaker. So may I ask the chairman and the other members of the committee if that was an issue that was raised in committee and when the report was being drafted? Because I believe the Saipan Chamber of Commerce raised very similar concerns about double charging and agencies having overlapping jurisdiction and overlapping fees for the same area. Is that something that was considered in the committee?
Rep, question to the chairman? Rep Borja, please, and then after I recognize.
Yes, colleague Sablan. The committee come up with a decision in support of this, not only by generating revenue or other reason, destruction, somebody has to be in charge. And I'm not with the coastal resource you said, you mentioned. Are they doing it? That's why we decided to give it to DPL.
You still have the floor, Rep.
So did the committee reach out to CRM or
Point of order, Mr.
BCQ?
Speaker. Point of order.
State your point of order, Vice.
This is a report from the committee, and it's barely recommending the passage of the bill. The bill would be, we need to either accept the report or not to accept the report. And then, when we do accept the report, the floor may calendar the bill, and then that's when we will discuss those issues that were raised earlier. For a matter of time, we need to move on. Thank you.
If I may, Mr. Speaker.
You still have
So
the
this
floor.
is
Thank you.
actually, thank you, Mr. Vice Speaker. My questions are actually relevant to whether we should adopt this report or not. If there are concerns, even from members of the committee, that may not have been addressed in the report, if there is this issue of double charging for the same area and CRM has not been contacted for comments, or if there's an issue about CRM presently enforcing the licenses and the fees that are in place already. These are issues that are all relevant to the report, and I would suggest that if those issues have not been addressed, then we should reconsider adopting the report today.
Thank you, Rep. Tina Sablan. Further discussion, Rep. Joel Camacho.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And to address your question, Rep. Tina, the main intent of this bill after meeting with DPL was the issue that several companies are currently encroaching within the 150 feet watermark. So DPL instructed the committee to please support this bill because there's currently no statute in place, and these companies are actually willing to pay the encroachment fees.
Thank you, Rep. Camacho. Rep. Camacho. Good. All right. All those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, please say nay. Motion carries. Standing Committee Report number 21-62 is hereby adopted. Floor Leader, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Next on our reports of Standing Committee, Standing Committee Report number 21-63, reporting on House Bill number 21-38, entitled to establish a one-day non-resident sport fishing license fee in the Sinamay and for other purposes. Your House Committee on Natural Resources recommends that the House pass the bill in the form of House Bill number 21-38, House Draft 1. I move for its adoption.
Thank you, Floor Leader. A motion has been presented by our Floor Leader for the adoption of Standing Committee Report number 21-63 and has been seconded. Discussion on that motion. Ready? All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, please say nay. Motion carries. Thank you, members. Floor Leader, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Next is House Committee Report number 21-64, reporting on House Bill number 21-41, entitled to make the Department of Lands and Natural Resources responsible for collecting the Maniagaha fee and removing the Department of Public Lands as recipient of the Maniagaha fees and for other purposes. Your Committee on Natural Resources recommends that the House pass House Bill number 21-41 in its current form. I move for its adoption.
Thank you, Floor Leader. Motion has been placed by our Floor Leader for the adoption of Standing Committee Report number 21-64 and has been seconded. Discussion on that motion. Rep. Tina Sablan, please.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. We do have some concerns about the adoption of this report as well. And in particular, we wanted to just call attention to the comments that are attached to the report but are not actually addressed in the committee's findings. There are the questions of constitutionality that the Attorney General's office raises, questions that have been addressed before by the Supreme Court. The Department of Public Lands objects to this bill for similar constitutional reasons. And then there's the issue of what the bill proposes to take funding from, which is the upkeep and the maintenance of Maniagaha Island, and what will be the impact of that island that's not addressed in this bill. And while the bill's findings say that the funds are being proposed to be used, at least in part, for land compensation as a permissible use, there is nothing in the bill that actually says that, and the committee report does not address that. And so we would strongly urge that this bill be returned to committee and that there be further review, and particularly that the legal issues, as well as the other issues about the impacts of this bill, both on Maniagaha Island, on the maintenance, and on the Public Lands Trust, what are the impacts, and those really should be taken up in the committee report, especially since this is an issue that has come up before and has been challenged in court before.
Thank you, Rep. Tina Sablan.
Thank you.
Further discussion on the report. Rep. Roman Benavente.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to echo Representative Tina with regards to the intent of this report. And whatever the committee has gone through, or the people who has tried to change this, we have to understand that this thing has to do with a constitutional issue. As you said, there should be a legislative initiative with regards to this to try to turn it over. We have done this in the past. Same type of scenario, that is what is put in place today. And we have done this in the past. Ever since the 18th legislature, we initiate this type of approach, but unfortunately we were not able because we couldn't muster a complete legislative initiative approach with regards to this intent. Thank you.
Thank you, Rep. Benavente. May I ask, Rep. Benavente, you are actually the author of this legislation. Are you in support of the report or against the report and the bill? And if the members would allow me after Rep. Benavente to speak up here.
originally, Mr. Speaker, and to the members, yes, I intend to do that, but the recourse, the recourse is to go through the legislative initiative. But if the because I have met personally with the DPL people with regards to this and the constitutionality that falls beyond on their authority. So, but if we want to vote for this, we can maybe put that back in the committee and put it to rest until further sessions that could be addressed.
You're the author, Rabbi
Yes,
Nabinti.
I would
If that's your-
personally request that because I know that the constitutional mandate is in place, and
So you're asking the committee that they refer this back to committee
yes, I'm asking
as
that,
a primary author of the legislation. Okay, before I take that, Rep. Blanco, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to share and for the consideration of the mover to reconsider putting this back to committee, and I will share why. Yes, I do agree with the Attorney General's opinion and the public lands opinion on the constitutionality of this bill. Yes, it is true that public lands are under the purview of the Department of Public Lands, and any fees collected by such will be given to DPL. It is my understanding that this bill's intent is not to collect the fees on Managaha Island, but rather to collect the fees for visitors over the water. So between Saipan Port and Managaha Port, the intent of this fee or this bill is to collect a fee when you transverse, you cross on that water. And I think that's the very simple intent of this bill. And I do ask that you reconsider putting it back to committee. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Rep. Blanco. Rep. Benabinti, you still have the floor.
And that is very true. There's still some of that snag between the authority of the Departments of Lands and Natural Resources, the Fish and Wildlife regulations, policies, and procedures, public laws that were established under Public Law 2-51 within the scope and authority of Public Law 2-51, and managing the Fish and Wildlife regulations. So with that, there are some snags and there's some overlapping authority that needs to be clarified and to be addressed. In who has really the actual rights of taking the authority with regards to Managaha, because right now we have to understand also that supposedly that the fundings that were collected within the Managaha has to go to DPL, and DPL will use certain portions of it for their operations, and then the rest of that will go to the MPLT funds to be in place. Unfortunately, there were some concerns with regards to that in the past, and that's why we were not able to try to muster, like I said, to muster the support. So I would rather see that it will go back. I know I introduced that bill, but I would rather see that it will go back to the committee and rehash it out. So, we get more as we go back and restudy it more and figure out how we can try to come up with a better solution to try to come about. If not, maybe the best approach is do a legislative initiative for whoever the newcomers of the legislatures that are coming in. Thank you.
Thank you, Rep. Benabinti. Further discussion, Rep. Lipon?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, I echo the Chairman of Ways and Means. The question I want to pose to the Council, I'm reading this because this is saying about water. Does DPL control the water rights? Because this water is floating, it's not a land. And that's the intent of this bill, is to collect a fee from point of embarking to point of disembarking. That is what I'm reading here. So is this unconstitutional? Because you sign it for legal sufficiency and we
No,
continue
it's not
to.
unconstitutional. There's two constitutional provisions. We have one of them that relates to the management of public lands, and that is the Department of Public Lands at this time. There's another constitutional provision relating to the management of submerged lands and the waters above submerged lands, and that is with the Department of Lands and Natural Resources. So the purpose here was the fee for the traversing over the submerged lands and the water above it. MPL, or Public Lands, has its own fee, Managaha fee arrangement under its previous agreement with Tasi Tours that was set up by agreement, and that's for a different purpose. That was for the use of the actual land in Managaha. So if you were to do a constitutional amendment, the purpose of the amendment would be to shift the responsibilities for submerged lands from the Department of Lands and Natural Resources to the Department of Public Lands. And then that would create jurisdiction over both submerged lands and lands within the same agency.
So
there is no conflict as the bill is written now.
So, my good colleague, Roman Benavente, I highly recommend that leave it, let's accept it, and pass it, because we're talking here about water. It has nothing to do with the landing fee in Managaha. That's a separate story. We're talking here about traversing over the water. You haven't reached Managaha. You're still in that channel. So I think this bill is sound about not being unconstitutional. I think we should move forward and place it on calendar. Thank you.
Thank you, Rep. Lipon. Further discussion before I recognize Rep. Benavente for the second time. Before I recognize Rep. Tina Sablan for the second time. Any further? Okay, Rep. Benavente and then Rep. Tina Sablan.
Well, Mr. Speaker, if with the indulgence of the members to put it to vote today, we will vote for it. I'll go along with it, but as what our legal counsel has mentioned, that there are still some stuff that needs to be addressed with regards to because the separations of authority now between natural resources, which Fish and Wildlife governs portions of that authority, and also the Department of Public Lands. So if we want to vote it, we can vote for it and live with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Rep. Benavente. Rep. Tina Sablan for the second round.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker and colleagues, and thank you, Representative Benavente, for your thoughtful deliberation on this bill. The Office of the Attorney General, so the Deputy Attorney General actually did address the points raised by our good chairman of Ways and Means and Commerce and Tourism. And I'll just read from the comments into the record. House Bill 2141 joins the list of legislation introduced in prior legislatures that have not been enacted, and for good reason. The transfer of authority from the Department of Public Lands to DLNR is likely unconstitutional. Whether labeled as a license or fee, the collection of money from disembarking passengers on Maniagaha Island, regardless from which island they boarded the vessel, is revenue generated from the management of public lands. She makes references to a Supreme Court opinion, there's an Attorney General opinion, and then she says quite clearly, House Bill 2141 would do what the Supreme Court has stated the legislature cannot do. jurisdiction over fees to be imposed on disembarking passengers on Maniagaha belongs to DPL. It's called a Maniagaha fee. That trying to do the workaround by calling it a surface transport fee, it's an attempt at a workaround, but I think that Representative Benaventi's point that the problem is that it is murky, and there are still there's still going to be some lingering confusion about how we interpret the Constitution and whether this legislation violates the Constitution, and we should be very wary of that. And so I would agree and support the author of the bill's request to send this back to committee, and I think we should be open to a legislative initiative that would really clarify once and for all the authority, the jurisdiction, the responsibilities of the agencies in collecting fees and managing public lands. Thank you.
Thank you, members. I mean, I really don't want to speak on the report itself until we get to the bill, but if we're under discussion of the report, is it okay from the members that I speak from here? I can switch seats with the floor leader and vice speaker. The creation of I know that this is talking about the surface fee, but the creation of Maniagaha landing fee happened back in the 10th or 11th legislature, 11-60 or 10-64. And when they created the Maniagaha landing fee, it was a public law that the Senate also had agreed on, that the property of Maniagaha belonged to the 3rd Senatorial District. From then on, all the collections of Maniagaha landing fee was appropriated by the delegations to the 11th, 12th, 13th legislature until 13-16 or 13-18. One of those public laws was codified, which was an appropriation that gave money to DPO so that they can assist the contractor of the land use down in Maniagaha, which was Tasi Tours. And after that legislation was codified, which it should never have been codified because it was an appropriation bill. It should have never been codified. Appropriations are temporary. Unfortunately, after that appropriation happened, it was codified, and Maniagaha, Tasi Tours at the time, and DPA or MPLA created a new contract that allowed them to use those funds to upgrade their facilities over there, which should have never been the cause, because all those monies that were appropriated by the delegation, by the 3rd Senatorial District back then were in the $3 million, $5 million, $6 million back in those days. And the remittance from Tasi Tours to DPL shrank all the way to like $150,000. So profits are obviously on their end. And the Assistant Attorney General that, or the Deputy Attorney General that signed off on this legal opinion was the legal counsel of the House back in the 12th, 11th, 12th, and 13th legislature that allowed these appropriations to happen. So if the signature of that's contradictive to the opinions that was utilized back in those legislatures, personally, I don't think that it carries enough water that you contradict your own legal opinion from the appropriation days, and now it's a constitutional issue. It became a constitutional issue when the court, when DPL and MPLA or MPLA and MPOT went to court regarding 13-16, which was codified, or 13-18. My apologies, I don't have the exact public law, but that's the reason why we got into all these issues with the Maniagaha landing fee. Unfortunately, MPLA's board back then signed a new contract with Tasi Tours to allow them to utilize those funds. And if you take the appropriations from the 13th legislature back on the Maniagaha landing fees on the local level, and the 13th legislature forward of how much was being remitted to DPL, I can guarantee that the total amount that was remitted from 2003, 4 forward to 2020 is less than what was appropriated by delegation in one single year. I can almost guarantee that. So that's why we went into this issue. All those monies was going to the 3rd Senatorial District for appropriation purposes for cultural, I believe land compensation, education, and a few others. There's a laundry list of those appropriations. a lot of our schools were upgraded because of the Maniagal landing fees that we were getting back then in the 3rd Senatorial District. So unfortunately, Public Law 1316 or 1318 created that mess when it got codified, which was an appropriation. So with that, I just want to share that with the members so we can decide on that with that history. But like I said, the signature of the Deputy AG was the same signature that was appropriating those monies back then. So just on the history of that. Further discussion, members? Ready? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, please say nay. Motion carries. Floor leader, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Next is our Standing Committee Report number 21-65, reporting on House Bill number 21-42, entitled to impose a toll fee to be paid by passengers who enter the MARPI area and for other purposes. Your Committee on Natural Resources recommends that the House pass House Bill number 21-42 in its current form. I move for its passage, for its adoption.
Thank you, Floor Leader. A motion has been placed by Floor Leader for the adoption of Standing Committee Report number 21-65 and has been seconded. Discussion on that motion. Rep. Sheila Babauta.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Chairman of Natural Resources Committee and the committee for working on this committee report. However, I do have some concerns and reservations regarding the Standing Committee report to impose a toll fee of $5 on each non-resident passenger who enters the MARPI area. That is in Precinct 4. That is the precinct that I represent. There have been comments received by DPL, the Chamber of Commerce, and the Office of the Attorney General, and they all share the same concerns that I do, and they all do oppose the bill in its current form. And so because the committee report recommends to pass the bill in its current form, I strongly do not support the bill in its current form, and I do not support the adoption of this Standing Committee report. The Saipan Chamber of Commerce humbly opposes the bill and offers some recommendations that I have not seen addressed in the committee report. Recommendations such as entering, instead of maintaining a toll booth, maybe another kind of fee should be charged when tourists enter the Marianas, and I believe that was a bill that may have been entertained or introduced by Rep. Blanco. DPL, the Department of Public Lands, does bring up the concern about maintaining a toll booth and the cost of having personnel man that toll booth for whatever duration, 7 days a week, 8 hours a day. And so because these concerns were not addressed, and the Office of the Attorney General does also bring up the fact that we are charging fees on public lands, and it will be designated to the Department of Land and Natural Resources instead of going to the Department of Public Lands. It is yet again another discussion on who is entitled to fees charged on public lands. I believe, colleagues, that we have time to send this back to committee and continue deliberations, because the tourist industry is something that we're going to have to work on for a couple of years due to the pandemic and other island destinations such as Guam and Hawaii. We cannot really trust that our tourists will return in the coming year or two. So I believe that we have time to still deliberate on an idea like this, to charge non-residents an entrance fee into the MARPI area. I also would like to bring to your attention that there is another bill that is in the Senate that Rep. Benavente, the main author of this bill, Rep. Benavente and I did co-sponsor a bill together to charge fees for each specific area and tourist destination in Marpi instead of one overall fee. And so I think that further studies and analysis is needed. And for that, I do not support the adoption of the standing committee report. I would recommend that we send it back to committee to address these concerns and also compare the two ideas of further charging fees to our tourists who will return, but we do have time to conduct those studies. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Rep. Sheila Babauta. Any further discussion? Rep. Martita and then Rep. Benavente, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I guess we just discussed Standing Committee report
164 or
2162, and now we're discussing 2164. I guess the issue here is
we're on
similar.
164.
4.
5.
165, yes, that's
sorry.
correct.
Go.
So I guess the issue here is similarly. So with that said, it's just a thought for all the members to, with passing, adopting Standing Committee Report 2165 and 2164. Both the AG and DPL is saying that we are infringing, this legislation is infringing on, on their authority. So I don't know why we're gonna continue to debate on this issue, or I just want to leave it to leave this thought with the members. Thank you.
Thank you, Rep. Martita. Rep. Benavente, please.
Thank you again, Mr. Speaker, with regards to Standing Committee Report 2165. Yes, we did author this bill, myself and Representative Babauta. I know personally when you go anywhere in the States or anywhere in the world, we get charged when we go to any tourist sites or anywhere. We get charged even in Japan, for example, when you go from one prefecture to the next prefecture, you get charged fees. Even to come close, even to Guam, you go to Two Lovers Point and they charge you fees just to enter into Two Lovers Point to see the area. So here, the approach that the tourist industry is doing here is that, or the MBA, whatever the Visitors Authority, is the one that's charging the fees through how much tourists that comes in by taxing them at the airport and whatnot. Or I don't know if we're taxing them by the airport, but I would say this, that we don't charge them. It's part of their packets. As they come, they just take them for a tour on the bus, and they take them all around our tourist site. And it's so embedded into the ticket and their own expenses as they come over. We don't see the money that lands on Saipan. And that is why it is very important that for us to start charging the fees for these companies. Unfortunately, until now, we're still struggling in trying to find this, but yes, there might be some, and I'm rethinking back, there might be some snag with regards to the constitutional issue, but there's something that has to extrapolate the issue with regards to the constitutional issue that's infringing this authority with DPL, and if it's so be it that we introduce a bill that the legislature would move forward and whatnot and try to introduce, then I would like to ask everyone too that I know I might sound like going a runaround, but I think it's high time that we introduce something in place so I know the tourists also is not coming in because of our issue with the COVID situation. But at an event that the tourist starts coming in, we will be ready to start charging whatever that needs to be charged so we can gain something, because we're only a small, tiny dot in this part of the world. So I would just say, like, Mr. Speaker, it's a very pressing issue right now, but I would like to ask my colleague here and that authored together the bill to support this, especially this bill only on MRP. So we have something. Maniagaha, there is something already. And to reintroduce, we can maybe use that as a stepping stone to try to refine the 2165 with regards to DPL. So in that event, I would like to ask my colleague and the rest of the members to support this bill if possible. So at an event that tourists starting to flow into our CNMI, these charges will be in place, and we won't be shortchanged. We won't lose out. And this is for not only, I'm thinking of this for the future generation. This is not only for us that's here today, but for the coming generation that will be in place. You know, as they grow, a lot of you guys have young kids. A lot of you folks have young kids that you would like to see a better life for them. And by us, what we do today would make a difference for their future. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Rep. Benavente. Further discussion. Rep. Tina Sablan, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, colleagues from the Natural Resources Committee. I do support, in general, the concept that Representative Benavente and Representative Babauta and others have proposed and advocated for, and that would really be the creation of a properly managed public park system. And we do need something like that, especially for a place like Marpi, which is so special for both natural and cultural and historic reasons. It's so important for our tourism industry. We can eventually anticipate tourists coming back, but I think that the issues of constitutionality, as Representative Maritita pointed out, are similar to the issues that were raised with the prior committee report that we adopted, and they are not addressed in this committee report. There are also some ambiguities that are not addressed in the committee report that, for example, the Attorney General points out that there isn't a definition of non-resident, there isn't a definition of what would be covered in the Marpi area. There hasn't been a study, which has been suggested in the comments, on the actual cost of managing a toll booth, building the toll booth, managing it Monday through Sunday. Who's going to staff that? How much would this actually cost, as opposed to how much can we anticipate being generated? That's not addressed in the committee report. And then there's the issue, since the bill was introduced and since the standing committee report, I guess, was drafted in February, it looks like, the organization of the agencies has also changed. So this bill proposes to require the Division of Parks and Recreation under the Department of Lands and Natural Resources to erect toll gates or barriers as necessary.
Rep. Tina, sorry, you're only discussing the committee report, right?
I am discussing the committee report. The Division of Parks and Recreation is required to erect these toll gates and collect the fees, but the fees wouldn't go to the Department of Public Lands. And actually now we know that Parks and Recreation is under the Department of Public Lands, but the committee report does not address that. And I do think that this concept of a park system does need to be further explored. I think the legislative initiative that you have proposed, Congressman Benavente, we also should consider that. And we do have time to do that. There is no rush to erect a toll booth in Marpi and start collecting fees for non-residents who are not coming for tourism right now. We have time to work out these issues and really figure out the best possible park system to manage a place like Marpi. So I, again, respectfully urge that we not adopt this committee report and that the committee take up the issues that have been raised today further in their deliberations. Thank you.
Thank you, Rep. Tina Sablan. Any further in the first round before I recognize Rep. Benavente? Rep. Lipon, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It seems like we're debating on just the committee report. I think, that in fairness to Marpi, we have a landfill back there. And when you go up to higher elevation, you see that landfill. Now here we are trying to debate the issue about this committee report. I fully support the intent of this. We need to be mindful that if we want to protect the pristine of the area, then we should put a toll booth by opening it free. Look what happened, just that recent incident. Who's going to remove that vehicle that is sitting there below Suicide Cliff? How do you beautify if we continue to allow the movement without controlling it? Friends of Marpi stopped the implementation of putting water and power there. DPW is asking for help to install power so they can operate sufficiently the Marpi landfill. But no, we don't want, because friends of Marpi don't want it. They want to keep it that way. But we continue to destroy those sites. Thank God that there is this PPP, public-private partnership, that's trying to maintain it. I had the opportunity to see the site being beautified and go back there, and that's been vandalized again because people are going there drinking at night, throwing their trashes, not a responsible individual. So what's wrong with shutting it down 6 to 6? No movement whatsoever. I think this toll booth should suffice that. When they talk about costs associated to operate it, it's going to generate its own self. I think we too should be paying because we're the cost of it. I don't mind paying $5 to go to Marpi or $5 to land in Manyaga because I expect it to be pristine. But if we complain that why charge NMD, then who's behind the vandalism? It's our own people. So I move and recommend that this body accept this standing committee report. And if it's going to die when we vote on it, then so be it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Rep. Lipon. For the first round, any other member? For the second round, Rep. Benavente and then Rep. Sheila Babauta.
I just want to clarify with regards to the comment of Representative Tina with regards to this, that the authority for the Parks and Recreation would be more or less to establish a promulgating authority that would establish policies and procedures, regulations to operate the parks, and the charges and everything will be in place. So those are the things that are considered with regards to my discussions with DPO and whatnot. Thank you.
Thank you, Rep. Benavente. Rep. Sheila Bavalta, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I do appreciate all the comments and the discussion taking place on deliberating this standing committee report. The reason why it's important that we discuss this now is so that we can either, decide whether it should go back to committee so that other concerns can be addressed, or we adopt it and it will proceed. It will proceed in the process where further deliberations may be made, where it may get passed. And so the reason why I don't support adopting this standing committee report is just like what I stated earlier. We have letters from the Chamber of Commerce, the Department of Public Lands, and the Office of the Attorney General opposing the bill in its current form. And so we can make the amendments to the bill at the committee level. And I believe that if we do it that way, it'll be a much more responsible way of policy making so that we can address the concerns as well as gather all the other ideas of how we should be charging our tourists in Marpi. I too would pay to visit any site in Marpi because that's how beautiful it is. I too support a stronger Parks and Recs department and a better management system. But a toll booth will not guarantee the pristine state of a tourist site. For all we know, if it is not properly managed and if studies are not properly done, we can have an abandoned toll booth. And that is something that is just the reality of how many sites, many structures are maintained and managed here in the CNMI. And so before we proceed with accepting this report, why not take it back and why not gather more data and address the concerns of unconstitutionality and concerns of maintenance and cost versus revenue collection and management of our sites. So I still do not support the adoption of this standing committee report, and I strongly urge you to also consider those reasons for the benefit of our future, just like what Rep. Benavente said, because I too support that. I support keeping our natural resources pristine and in a state where future generations can enjoy. But we have to do it the right way, and we have to make these changes and think about how the process is done so that we can see these visions actualize. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Thank you, Rep. Babalta. Any further? First or second round? Vice Speaker, please.
I move to end discussion. Thank you.
I was going to say something. So the motion is to end discussion. Members, we all know that the CID legislation that Rep. Blanco and many of us have co-sponsored became public law. That has allowed senatorial districts to promulgate these kinds of fees. The Chamber of Commerce, I don't agree with their comments for the mere fact that they know very well that we cannot charge entering the CNMI. We don't control that. That's FAA. We can't even charge exiting the CNMI. FAA controls that. The properties in the northern side, the toll booth is going to be erected on the middle of the road that will block the cars from coming in and out. Those properties belong to DPW. They don't belong to DPL. So the argument of DPL should be collecting the fees doesn't stand. The rights of way belongs to DPW. So if we're going to fight or we're going to debate over that, I think that the bill itself, we can change it on the bill itself when it gets to bill calendar and remove the LNR and put it to DPW. If our concerns about the landfill, they can use those funds to take care of the landfill, maintain the area. We all know that DLNR, Parks and Recs takes care of our parks and our shoulders for the most part. But as Rep. Tina Sablan had mentioned, Parks and Recs now under DPL. Right during the COVID period, they moved Parks and Recs under DPL. But the property itself, where this supposed toll booth will be erected, will be on DPW property. So the argument of the property belonging to DPL and the collections going to DPL doesn't hold water because the property belongs to DPW already. That's Public Law 20-57, if I'm not mistaken. They gave DPW the ownership of rights of ways. So if that's our argument over that, we can take care of that address that on the bill.
Clarification,
Just,
Mr. Speaker. This is basically what you're mentioning is the same scenario as the tourist site. I mean the Garapan tourist site, like the Hotel Street and whatnot here in Garapan. For example, the parking meters. There's a conflicting authority between the Department of Public Works and the DPS. Who should manage and collect the funds out of the parking meters? That's why until now we applied for a grant. We had a parking meter, but we never could collect the.
Yeah, but that's Representative. I know you're diverting the.
But that's one example that I'm trying to say.
You're very right. You're very right. That's a class one. That's been around for 20-some years. We haven't collected 1 cent on those parking meters that we paid to put, except DPW, DPL, and DPS fighting over who's going to maintain it, who's going to collect the monies. This argument doesn't hold water. DPW owns the roads. So if we're gonna debate over the committee report, let's get to the bill and change it. Remove the Parks and Rec, remove the LNR, give it to DPW. We always gave it to the LNR with the understanding that they maintain the area. But if it's ownership of property that the AG's stating, it belongs to DPW, guys. Just so we know. The reason why this legislation came about is to be able to spread that money through all the senatorial districts on the collections. With the CID, I mean, we can scrap this bill, go with the CID that's already law, and the 3rd senatorial district will collect everything. And that's not fair for the 1st and 2nd senatorial district. Just for consideration. Any further discussion on the report?
Just a point of clarification, Mr. Speaker
Please.
and colleagues, and again, relevant to the report. The report does not address the particular concern that the AG raises. And Mr. Speaker, and just respectfully, it's not just about where the toll gates would go. That's not the only issue of jurisdiction. I think that the real issue, which the AG's office points out, is access to the Marpi area, access to these public lands, which is management of public lands. And so the argument there is that the Department of Public Lands should be the recipient of any revenues, any fees that are collected from access and management of these public lands. So that's the issue, and I wanted to raise that also, and that is not in the committee report. Thank you.
Thank you, Rep. Tina Sabat. Rep. Sheila Bota for the last round.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Rep. Tina, for bringing that up because the bill in its current form states that the toll booth will be collecting fees from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. And if you haven't visited Bonsai Cliff or the Marpi area at night, then you wouldn't know that it's a very popular spot for tourists and residents alike because of the stargazing that happens up there. So, issues like this, it should be addressed at the committee level. Or we can look forward to a very long session where members like me who are from the north and who have experience up there and have much to contribute, but is a member of the minority, will have a very small chance of amending the bill in its current form. And so if we send this back to committee, we can address things like accessibility, like constitutionality, like fee amount, maintenance, and we can make way more clarifications easily at the committee level instead of on the floor. And whenever we do it on the floor, it takes a long time. We are all exhausted, and the deliberations can happen for hours on end. So I still do not support the adoption of the standing committee report, and I strongly urge my colleagues to reject this standing committee report so that we can make the necessary changes, meaningful changes at the committee level. Thank you.
Thank you, members. Further discussion? Rep. Martita, please.
Mr.
For the
Speaker,
last round, sorry.
yes, a quick one. May I know who's the author on this?
Rep. Roma Benavente, and I believe it's a co-author between Benavente and Rep. Sheila Babalta. No?
Point of
Sorry?
clarification, no. This legislation, this current bill is authored by Rep. Roman Benavente. The other bill that I was referring to in my earlier statement was another bill where we co-sponsored a bill to charge fees for the 6 specific tourist destinations in Marpi. So that is another way we can charge fees in Marpi, is per site or an overall toll fee. So those are the ideas that I still recommend that we deliberate at the committee level. Thank you.
Thank you. Rep. Martita, you still have the floor. Apologies.
No, so with the author, I mean, are you withdrawing your legislation, Rep. Benavente, or are you in support? Or because as an author, I think you should be. I think that your position, whether to adopt or not, is to be respected. So.
Bente, you please
Thank
to
you,
respond.
Representative Martita. On the House, the Standing Committee Report 2164, I recommend that it will be brought back to the committee because this issue is a different issue that I have introduced. But with regards to the Standing Committee Report 2161, like I said, I wanna. The snag here is the constitutional issue that DPL is trying to impose on all the different areas that they claim they have the authority. But like what has the speaker has alluded earlier, just a while ago, that with regards to who is really responsible in authority to collect and whatnot. I would say, for the sake of us not really losing anything and to establish something, I would go ahead and support this bill right now. I support the House Bill 2165. So in the future, this 2165 will lead to a correction for the 2164 as further deliberated in the coming legislatures or introduced and addressed in the coming legislatures for the sake and benefit of our future generation.
Thank
That's
you.
all I'm
Thank
asking.
you, Rep. Benavente. Rep.
With
Martita.
that said, Mr. Speaker, I move to end discussion on such standing committee report as.
Thank you. Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. Thank you, members. Floor leader, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And last on Standing Committee Report is Standing Committee Report number 21-66, reporting on House Bill number 21-90 entitled to designate lot number 004G 43 located in Cagman for the Cagman Transfer Station Facility. Your House Committee on Natural Resources recommends that the House pass House Bill number 21-90 in its current form. I move for its passage, adoption.
Thank you, Floor Leader. A motion has been placed by Floor Leader for the adoption of Standing Committee Report number 21-66, and that's been seconded. Discussion on that motion. Ready? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. Motion carries. Standing Committee Report number 21-66 hereby adopted. Reports from special and conference committees. Floor Leader, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Under item 13, we only have one, and that is Conference Committee Report number 21-2, reporting on House Bill number 21-104, House Substitute 1, Senate Draft 1, entitled to reduce the 30 days period within which to pay the excise tax in respect to dusable goods requiring customs inspection and clearance to be paid upon clearing customs and for other purposes. Your conference committee recommends the passage of the bill in the form of House Bill number 21-104, House Substitute 1, Senate Draft 1, Conference Committee Substitute 1. I move for its passage.
Thank you for a motion for the passage of House Bill number 21-104, HS1, SD1, CCS1 has been presented by our floor leader and has been seconded. Discussion on that motion.
Just point of order.
Yep.
Sure. Floor leader, please, and then Rep. Tina Sablar.
Yeah, just a brief explanation as the assigned chair for the Conference Committee, and along with our members, LJ Castro and Joel Camacho. So we did convene with our counterparts, the conferees of the Senate, and we had worked on a conclusion with a compromise. Specifically, if you guys look at the bill and the differences of the work of the conference, is that we just added the 3rd Senatorial District in the further on the amendments of the Senate, just so that, and the reason why the leadership had recommended that we reject and form a conference committee months ago is that because of the provisions that only give the exceptions to 1st and 2nd Senatorial, and we have history of legislations that reached the desk of the administration that have vetoed legislations to such extent that we are one Commonwealth, and we shouldn't have exemption or special treatment amongst our senatorial districts. So that was the reason why we moved to reject, and this is the end product of the conference committee, and the simple amendment we did and compromise was added the 3rd Senatorial District in further in their amendments. Thank you. Thank you, Vice Speaker.
Any further discussion? If
It's
none,
a question actually for the chairman.
I recognize the minority leader.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Speaker. And Mr. Chairman, thank you for that summary. Could you also address the conference committee's discussions regarding the Senate's amendments to this bill? And how did the conference committee anticipate that customs would define what is a qualified low-risk versus high-risk importer? There could also be perceptions of discrimination associated with that. And so could you just elaborate a bit further? I don't see that in the committee report, but was there discussion about that, about how customs would define that in the regulations?
Right. Thank you for that question. And both houses had the opportunity to have an audience with the Director of Customs and their prestige staff. And there are discussions on how do you rate a low risk versus a high risk. And perhaps those that are low risk are those establishments that are here doing business more than 10 years, more than 15 years, such as the big ones that we have, Triple J, Jolten, Enterprises. Now, the high risk are rated by those contractors that are here just to for a 3-month, 6-month period of services of their expertise, and these are the issues that custom has with this. With what they call the fly-by-night businesses that are just here for a specific expertise and services to provide in the Commonwealth, and most of these businesses leave our Commonwealth without addressing the dues, excise tax that are due to their companies through customs. So with the amendments that the Senate had amendment on the original proposed legislation. So the Director of Customs shall promulgate the regulations and to include and limited to all the minimum deferred payments, payment grace period. So if you are a low risk, you will continue with the 30 days grace period. We're just giving the opportunity for the Director of Customs to tackle on those fly-by-nights businesses that do leave our Commonwealth without paying their due excise tax. And there's several going back in history in the tune of hundreds of thousands that are uncollected for many years that are in no way, I assume, that they will be able to collect those dues.
And just as a follow-up question, so Customs imagines that a low-risk importer would be a long-time established business. Is that correct?
Yes.
So could there also be a chance then that new local entrepreneurs, startup businesses, might be at an unfair disadvantage under this regulatory scheme then? Is that something that you discussed in committee?
I'm sure those issues would be promulgated on the regulations to put more clarity that if you're a local that is a new entrepreneur here, I assume that you should be considered as considered a potential established for a full term versus companies that come from Philippines, because we don't have the expert services here, companies that come from Korea that are only here for a specific services that we don't have locally, and not even our neighboring islands, Guam, have locally. So those are the high-risk companies that Customs needs to of help to cater and try to collect taxes, excise taxes on this. But if you're asking the question on local entrepreneurs, I'm sure that the Division of Customs shall promulgate rules to consider and rate them as a well established that is going to be a settled business here in the Commonwealth.
Okay, and just as a point of order then, does the adoption of this conference committee report mean that we accept the amendments, or is it going to be placed on calendar?
If we adopt this conference committee, it means that we pass the conference report.
Thank you. I yield.
Thank you, Rep. Tina Sablan. Any further discussion? Ready? Clerk, please call the roll.
Representative Franklin Babalta? Representative Sheila Babalta?
Yes.
Representative Benavente?
Good.
Representative Blanco?
Yes.
Representative Borja? Representative Komatsu?
Yes.
Representative Castro?
Ungan.
Representative De Leon Guerrero?
Ungan.
Representative Flores?
Yes.
Representative Guerrero?
Good.
Representative Vitabos?
Awar.
Representative Lizama?
Yes.
Representative Mangalonia?
Yes.
Representative Maritita? Representative Peter?
Awar.
Representative Christina Sablan?
Yes.
Representative John Paul Sablan?
Hungan.
Representative Villa Gomez?
Yes.
Representative Yumo? Yes. Mr. Speaker?
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, all 20 members voted yes.
Thank you, Clerk. With all 20 members voting yes, House Bill number 21-104 HS1 SD1 CCS1 hereby passes the House. Thank you, members. We have none under unfinished business. May I ask that we take like a, please state your privilege. I was just gonna get to that. Thank you for using your privilege motion to use that. So we'll take like a 5-minute recess, and then we'll decide whether we want to continue right after or we want to do after lunch. Thank you, members. 5 minutes, please. Where's the resolution? We are back into session, and previously discussed during our recess that we will be moving to bill calendar and address the legislation on 21-11. So with that, floor leader, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We are now on bill calendar, and at this time, I make a motion that we, for the passage of House Bill number 21-11, House Substitute 1, Senate Draft 1, Senate Draft 3, entitled "To Clarify the Powers of the Commonwealth Casino Commission and to Make Needed Changes to the Commonwealth Code given the unique regulatory oversight of the casino industry in the Commonwealth and for other purposes." I move for its passage.
Thank you, Floor Leader. The Floor Leader has made a motion for the passage of House Bill number 21-11, HS1, SD1, SD3, and has been seconded. Discussion on that motion. Rep. Lee-Pon, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I know that this bill has been sitting on both houses, and today we're going to make a decision whether to pass this bill. I only ask, Mr. Speaker, as I alluded earlier, that I'm not in support of this bill, but if the Casino Commission commissioners are going to be diligently exercising their fiduciary duties, then so be it. But I want to hear down the line from them that they're going to resolve the issues with IPI. No more of this, we're thinking of imposing fines. Impose it. Put a lock on that casino if they're not compliance. I think the people is all that the commission are doing their fiduciary duties, not to hurt IPI, but to let them know that enough is enough. No more of this, yes, we will conditionally do this and that. And giving them this extensive power, I hope that they will exercise that right. I want to hear something new, not just the same thing that I'm hearing every day. Something different. So I hate saying I changed my mind, but the late Froilan Tenorio used that word candidly. So today probably will be it. But again, I have some reservation with this, but if members are going to vote for it, then so be it. Thank you.
Thank you, Rep. Lee-Pon. Further discussion. Rep. Benavente and then Rep. Tina Sablan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Same reasoning with regards to the intent of the bill and what the proposal of the commission. The Casino Commission, we have been experiencing a lot of issues with regards to the casino issues here, and we would like to see some stringent enforcement and some solid, really solid grounds with regards to our interests as far as the operations of the casino here. And I know they owe a lot to the CNMI and companies and other. I personally don't like to see the casino go down. I like to continue to see the casino continue, but because we would be getting funds from that. But unfortunately, until now, the situation has drastically been, it's been an issue. So I would personally like to see that this new group, because lately we just confirmed these individuals that are in place right now, again, in the committees for the Casino Commission. And we would like to see them more, I would say, more aggressive in resolving the issues. And that's it, because I didn't like what the decision that was, what I saw this last time with regards to the previous decision, the meetings. But I hope that future confrontations with other issues that they will be more aggressive and more. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Rep. Benavente. Rep. Tina Sablan, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And briefly, I want to express my support for this bill as amended. It is a long time coming. It has been years in progress. It has gone through multiple legislatures. At every Casino Commission meeting that I've attended this year, I think this bill comes up every time. I think all of us share an interest in seeing increased enforcement and increased accountability for Saipan's casino licensee. And that is exactly the intention of this bill. There are important provisions that would clarify and strengthen the investigative and enforcement powers of the Casino Commission. There are ambiguities that get cleared up. There's provisions that would enhance the independence and autonomy of the Casino Commission, as well as the disclosure requirements of the casino licensee, so for greater transparency from the licensee itself. I'm ready to vote, and I hope that we all support its passage. Thank you.
Thank you, Rep. Tina Sablan. Further discussion? Ready? Clerk, please call the roll.
Representative Franklin Babalta? Yes. Representative Sheila Babalta?
Yes.
Representative Benavente?
I'm good.
Representative Blanco?
Yes.
Representative Borja? Representative Komatsu?
Yes.
Representative Castro?
Ungan.
Representative Julian Guerrero?
Ungan.
Representative Flores?
Yes.
Representative Guerrero?
Ungan.
Representative Vitubus?
Aware.
Representative Lezama?
Yes.
Representative Mangolonia?
Yes.
Representative Maritita? Representative Peter?
Aware.
Representative Cristina Sablan?
Yes.
Representative Jean Paul Sablan?
Hungan.
Representative Villagomez?
Ungan.
Representative Yumo? Mr. Speaker?
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, all 20 members voted yes.
Thank you, Clerk. With all 20 members voting yes, House Bill number 21-11, HS1, SD1, SD3 hereby passes the House. Thank you again, colleagues. So now we'll move for adjournment, and we'll set up session for next week, Tuesday, and possibly Thursday or Friday. Floor Leader, please, for the proper motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With that notion, I now move that we adjourn, subject to your call. So move.
A motion has been presented for adjournment by our floor leader and has been seconded. Discussion on that motion. Ready? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. Motion carries. We're hereby adjourned. Thank you again, members, and thank you. Congratulations.